Just because everybody is doing something in a certain way does not mean you have to do that thing in the same exact way. Podcast Growth Nation, today for episode number 168, a simple way to create reels for your episodes. I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, I'm not at the place where I know how to do video editing, and I'm not at the place where I want to pay for an Opus clip or whatever it is, whatever the software is, right? There's a bunch of those out there. What do I do? How do I create video content that connects to the podcast? And I said, that's a really good question, and probably a question that doesn't get asked enough, because everybody is doing reels from their podcast episodes, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do it. This is my thought. If you were to take a 60-minute episode, video episode, throw it into Opus Clip or whatever AI software is going to take your video and make it into clips. What they call viral clips. They're not most likely going to go viral. It just doesn't work that way. But you might get, let's say you get 10 decent clips, okay? In the same amount of time it would take you to upload the video, to share the link with Opus Clip, to make sure you go through, to make sure the transcript is right, to go through all of those, you could literally create your own organic content that would probably perform better. So that is my goal in today's episode, to talk about that. And it's going to be based on a framework that we've talked about in depth many, many, many times, but this is a new way to potentially do it. Okay. So you've heard me talk about hook, story, lesson, future pace, call to action. You've heard me talk about that many, 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 many times. We're going to use the same idea today, but we're going to change it up just a little bit. So it's going to be hook, story, lesson, conclusion, or resolution, either one, call to action. So this is my thought. Let's say you do a solo episode on 3 ways to grow your business, 3 ways to make your relationship better, 3 ways to whatever. Let's say this is a solo episode right now, right? 3 ways to do something. Instead of putting your stuff into Opus Clip or whatever it is, after you do the episode, right after you finish the episode, you're in the same exact clothes you were, you're in the same space, the lights are on, the camera's on, everything is on. You literally just pick up your phone, you hold your phone in front of your face, and you do a hook, a story, a lesson, a resolution, and then a call to action. And again, in this case, you don't have to you can do hook, story, lesson, future pace, call to action. You can do either one of those frameworks. Now, I'll walk through quickly what those are, and then we'll kind of run through some examples. Hook. You'll never believe what happened to me this weekend. Something that gets people to lean in, right? On social media, there are a lot of different kinds of hooks. There are transition hooks, there are word hooks, there's emotion hooks, there's a bunch of stuff. If you've ever seen the videos of, these were going viral for a while, where it was a video of somebody, they were pushing somebody in a stretcher, there was 2 paramedics, and the stretcher falls over and the person falls down. People would start their reel with that, and then it would transition to them rolling on the ground and jumping up and trying to sell you a car, hypothetically. That's a really good example of a hook. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm talking more from the example of hooks using words. But you'll never believe what happened to me this weekend. You'll always be stuck if you don't listen to what I'm about to say. This is something that I know that nobody else is willing to tell you. Those are all examples of hook. And it's the energy, it's the delivery, it's the enunciation. There's a lot to practice there. That's the hook. Story is, I did an episode today. Well, it wouldn't actually be that. A story is whatever the story that you told on the episode that connects to the lesson, right? And we'll go into that. Lesson is what you're teaching. So what is the takeaway? What is the value? And then future pace is always hard to explain, but future pace essentially is life after the lesson. So if you've ever seen a commercial for a medication, in the beginning, the person's trying to get out of bed and they're super sore, and it's telling you a story about how they essentially can't go watch their kid play sports, whatever. And then after they take the medicine, because the medicine in this example is the lesson, They're up and at 'em and they're smiling an uncomfortable amount and they're super happy. That is future pace. That is what life is like after the lesson. But we could also call that the resolution. We could also call that the conclusion. That's kind of the ending of what we're talking about. And then the call to action is, where do people go next? Okay? So essentially, I suggest, if you're struggling to take video content and turn it into reels, and when I say to create video content, I mean to create high quality video content. Again, it's easy to throw it in these AI things. They just do not do a great job yet. If you want to do it, but I'm telling you, I think this is a way that might actually make it better. So we would treat it like a 60-second podcast episode. Hook, story, lesson, conclusion, or future pace, call to action. So let's say, what's a good example of this? Okay, let's say I have a podcast about business, right? My business partner, Alan, has a podcast called Business Growth University. Let's say he didn't want to have the team make clips. He was going to do this by himself. He would pick up his phone and he would record a video. The goal is 45 seconds to a minute. And we're going to start with a hook. Okay, let's say the episode is the number one reason 90% of businesses go out of business, hypothetically. The hook is going to be something along the lines of 9 out of 10 businesses go out of business. I do not want that to happen to you. Here's how to avoid that. Boom, hook. Story. I was talking to somebody recently and they were telling me all the things that were going wrong in their business, and very clearly and very abundantly clearly, I noticed that they were most likely going to be in trouble. And a lot of the things that they were doing are the common mistakes and the common problems that the 90% of businesses that go out of business make. Okay, hook, story, lesson. I talk to them all about these 3 quick things that they can do to solve 90% of the problems that they're experiencing right now. Okay, that's lesson. You can give away the lesson too. So if you had specific examples, you can use that. And then here's where it gets wonky. In these reels, you don't technically need a future pace, but I think it helps. So as an example, you could say, I talked to that person a week later and they had already made a bunch of changes and now their numbers are going in the right direction. So now we have hook, story, lesson, future pace / conclusion, and now we do the call to action. If you're a business owner and you're afraid you might be in the 90% that go out of business, I have an episode that's dropping or just dropped. I'll have the link in my bio above. Boom. That is what I would suggest we do. Many reasons. And this is the biggest reason. And again, I just came up with that off the top of my head. It would be a lot better if I spent 5 minutes scripting it and whatever, right? Just like for you, spend a little time doing it. What do you think is going to be better? You taking a clip from a podcast episode, or you just reverse engineering what's the most valuable clip you could put on social media? I think that. Have you ever tried to get a really good... Oh, here's a good example. Have you ever tried to get a really good thumbnail from a video? So you do a video and then you're trying to get a thumbnail from the video. It's a pain in the ass. You know what's way easier? Just posing for a picture before you do the episode. Same thought here. So you can do hook, story, lesson, future pace, call to action, or hook, story, lesson, conclusion, call to action as a 1-minute video on your social media feed. There you go. And here's the other thing. Being able to do that in that amount of compressed time is going to help you as a speaker so much. I did that every day for a year, and I noticed my speaking drastically increasing because every day it was a challenge. It's a challenge to have a title of an episode and say, okay, I just did a 15-minute episode on this. How do I do a 1-minute micro episode on this that's just going to go on social media? That's a challenge. Then you can always do that as a YouTube short and then have it connect back to your episode. There's a lot of ways to go about it. I think this is really good for someone who wants to really have an authentic touch because it's different. It's more personal. It's more directed to the audience. Maybe it's more performative. You get a really good opportunity to lean into the speaking and the emotion and that type of thing. So I think it's a really good opportunity if you're out there. Part 2. So let's say you're doing guest interviews. So that what I just said was solos. Framework's the same: hook, story, lesson, future pace or conclusion, call to action. Awesome. If you have a guest on, you just highlight the guest. So I just had one of the most powerful conversations ever with somebody who's overcome things that I can't even imagine going through. There's your hook. Story is whatever their story is, right? I just talked to this person who was abandoned when they were young and boom, 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 whatever. You got to tell whatever version of their story that they gave you. That's the story. The lesson would be your big takeaway. So by the end of this episode, I had learned so much about what it means to deal with and overcome adversity. It was one of the most inspirational conversations I've ever had in my life. There's your lesson. Future pace. At this point, after this conversation, I will never look at growth. I will never look at challenges. I will never look at failure the same. There's your future pace. I'm different now after this episode. And then call to action. If that is something that would inspire you, if you're in the space right now or you're looking for a story that might change your life, this episode drops on Thursday. I'll have the links available in my bio. Boom.
Hi, my name's John Laurito, and I just wanted to give a big shout out to Kevin Palmieri. I had reached out to him. He had been referred to me when I had shared with a friend of mine some interest in doing a podcast, and he said, "You've got to use Kevin. He's fantastic. He's the best around. He'll get you started and off the ground and soaring high in no time." And take it from somebody who knows nothing about podcasting other than maybe saying a few things. But as far as behind the scenes, the startup, everything, I knew nothing. Kevin was phenomenal in terms of leading me through the whole process, and not just easy to work with, but really, really knows his stuff. A great combination between leading me through all the stuff I had no idea what I was doing, but also really listening to me and understanding what it was I was trying to accomplish and what my vision is. So whether you're looking for somebody to help you and get you started, or somebody, as I've done, where I'm putting it entirely in his hands because I've got total trust and confidence in him, and he is a true pro and easy to work with, any of those ends of the spectrum, you're going to have a lot of success and a lot of fun working with Kevin. Trust me. Thanks.
One of the reasons it's maybe as, if not more valuable to do that than to do a podcast clip from a guest is, please do not get mad at me when I say this, not all guests are great speakers. Not all guests are great at telling their story. Not all guests understand that you're going to try to find a good clip to promote the episode with. If you're a better speaker than the guest is, you might be able to make a better reel than they can. I think that's an important thing to understand. And I don't mean that as an arrogant thing. I've been on shows where it was very clear that this person wanted me to say something in 30 to 45 seconds that would make for a very good clip. Awesome, love it. And I happen to practice that, so it works well. But I don't expect everybody to do that. How many people have you had on your podcast that it's their first or their fifth or their 10th interview? They're just working through getting the kinks out. You might be able to tell a better story from the episode than they might be able to. And you might be able to create an organic piece of content that's more, I won't say valuable, I'll say more micro valuable than pulling out a teaser clip. There's a lot. Here's the thing that's hard. Okay. There's a lot of editing that goes into a really good teaser clip, like a really good social media reel. It's very rarely is it ever, okay, we're going to take from 45 seconds to a minute and 30, and that's the clip. It's, we're going to take 15 seconds from 45 seconds to a minute, and then we're going to find, okay, we got to jump in a minute 20, we got to cut that. There's usually a lot of edits. I literally just created a couple teaser clips for one of our clients, and there was like 5 different cuts. It was like the first 20 seconds, and then we got rid of 15 seconds, and then it was 5 seconds, and we got rid of 10 seconds. You won't know because you didn't hear the whole conversation. But it's reverse engineered on what's going to work best on social media. I think you might be able to just do that with your voice. If you're not somebody who's going to learn video editing, right? It's kind of it's a big jump. It's a big jump. It's easier than it's ever been for sure, but it still might not be the most valuable use of your time. So that's another thing to look at. I feel like for a lot of us, what we see other people doing is what we think we have to do. Not understanding that those other people might have different information, or they might have more knowledge, or they have more resources, or whatever it is. And we think we have to play the same game. And honestly, that's how I learned how to video edit. In 2017, 2018, teaser clips were like newer because Instagram and Facebook, it was transitioning from, take pictures of your food and take pictures of sunsets to, okay, there's going to be like influencers, and we're going to have video, and we're going to have an opportunity to convert people to other places. It was a different transition point. And a lot of the podcasts at the time, the bigger successful podcasts, they were having teaser clips. And I said, we have to find a way to do that. So I learned how to do that. If you don't want to go that route, I think this is a really good way to do it. I do. So right now, if you're doing teaser clips, I would test and see what happens. Look at the insights. So how many views are we getting? And what's the average view duration? My thought process behind it is you're probably going to be able to make a better hook behind the scenes than a guest is going to do, just happens to do on a podcast episode. So I would try this, and then I would do a lot of split testing to see what works and what doesn't work. Going back to last week's episode, 80% what works, 20% test. You want to do 80% regular teaser clips? Awesome. I would say test out this 20% of the time and see what happens. And then eventually it might get to the point where you've done it long enough and it just is easy or easier, right? I've done this a lot. So it's probably going to be easier, quote unquote, for me because I just have done it so much. But I'm telling you, if you committed to doing this, let's say you do an episode every week and you did this for a year, I'm telling you, you would be a drastically better speaker at the end of the year. For sure. For sure. You don't have to do it every day like I did. If you want to do it every day like I did, shout out to you. You are going to grow as a speaker. For sure. Because it's a challenge. It's a challenge to come up with this. And it's a challenge to see the clock winding down and thinking, okay, I gotta get to my call to action here. Oh my goodness, how do I do that? Or I gotta make a really powerful hook. That's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing is the powerful hook. It's not. Here's the sad truth. And it's a sad truth that I wish wasn't true. The content is only as valuable as your ability to get people to listen to it. That right there could be a clip. That right there could be a teaser clip. Because that's a really powerful level of truth, right? But in my mind, I knew that could be a clip, potentially. But that's meta. That is a sad fact. There's a lot of super valuable podcast episodes out there. And we try to get people to listen to those episodes by showcasing the value without understanding the psychology behind humans. Humans need to be pulled into something. They just need to be. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Dark Knight. And it has one of the best opening scenes ever of all time. It starts on the street with I think it's like a zoom into the mask of the Joker, and then it goes into the bank robbery scene, and you talk about starting a movie. It goes into it. It's a great example of a hook. That's a great example of a hook. When you watch shows like Diary of a CEO, when you watch shows like Tom Bilyeu, if you've never seen Diary of a CEO, go search that on YouTube. That's a really good example of a cold open hook. They get right into the goods. There's noise, there's cutscenes, there's zooms, there's emotions. It's trying to scare the shit out of you. They split test all of that. They know what works and what doesn't. So that's a really good thing to look at. This is a good example too. If you follow anybody who is focused on helping people grow on social media, you're going to see a lot of different hook styles. So like one of the hooks that people use, I can't show you obviously because it's not going to work, but they'll start their video on their ceiling and then they'll turn it to themselves. That's a hook because it's different. It gets you hooked. They'll do that, or What else will they do? They'll be doing something at the same time that they're talking. So like they'll be making a protein shake or they'll be cooking while they're talking. And the thought behind that is you'll stick around longer because they're multitasking and they're doing more interesting things. So not necessarily the same version of a hook, but the thought is to get you hooked in and get you to stay longer. A lot of people on social media use quick cuts. They have different outfits. It's very, very, very quick because if somebody's only going to be there for 3 seconds, you do 3 seconds and then something has to change, and then you do that again after 3 seconds. There's a lot of work that goes into that. That's a lot of editing. That's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I think you can probably get your own unique version of that by speaking. So that's my challenge to you all. So hook, story, lesson, future pace, call to action, or hook, story, lesson, conclusion, call to action, whichever of those works best for you. Essentially, they're the same, but I know the future pace can be hard to explain. It's just your life after the lesson. That's it. Your life after the lesson. Best example is go watch an infomercial for a non-stick pan. That's it. The hook. Oh no, the eggs have burnt again and now your family hates you. That's the hook. The story is them showing you what happens. So you wake up in the morning and you want to cook breakfast for your family and you crack your eggs and oh no, they get stuck to the pan again. And no matter what you do, you can't get them off and you can't get the pan clean and then it gets rusty and blah, blah, blah. All right? That's the story. Lesson. Our pan is the best. And they will show you that by like cooking gum and showing you that the gum doesn't stick. That's the lesson. And then the future pace is the family happy as hell sitting around a breakfast table. That's a really, really good example. And then the call to action is buy now, or and there's more, or that's not all. If you buy today, that's the call to action. Buy our pan is the call to action. There's a reason they do it that way, because that is the psychological template to get people to do something, right? Again, people that put a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money into researching this stuff. That's why they do it that way. Now, if you're 22 years old, you might not even know what an infomercial is. Shout out to you. I'm 36 years old, so I saw my fair share of infomercials. But yeah, just go on YouTube and search non-stick pan infomercial. And I'm telling you, you'll never be able to unsee this again. This is everywhere. Everywhere. All right, cool. All right. If you need help with anything like this, if you want to be a stronger speaker, if you need help with hooks, if you need help with storytelling, whatever it is, I'll have my link below for a free 30-minute podcast breakthrough session. Podcast Growth Nation, a great place for podcasters, a free private Facebook group for people doing what you're doing in the world. And then October 7th, 2025, we have our next round of the Next Level Podcast Accelerator starting. So this is a group coaching program for podcasters who want to grow, scale, and monetize their podcasts. It is a 12-week deep dive into getting the mindset, getting the awareness, getting the habits, getting the strategies, getting the deeper understanding on how to essentially turn your podcast into a business over the long run. So if you're interested, I'll have the link below for that as well. If you use the discount code NLU Listener, it ends up being like $24 per call. You can't get a more affordable, higher value program. I can't imagine. And there's at least 2 of us on every call. So Alan is the business coach. So he's focused on the business coaching part. I'm focused on the podcast coaching part. And then we have Amy, who is the assistant coach, but she also coaches people on holistic personal development. So 2 of us are on every single call. It might be me and Amy. It might be Amy and Alan. But yeah, there's always 2 people on these calls. So it's awesome. It's awesome. I'm really happy that we've gotten to this point because this was literally a dream come true at one point, and now we've done this 19 times, so this will be our 20th group. So we'll have the link below for that as well. Okay. I hope for you that you're not hiding behind repurposed content, because I know it's really easy to just record content and then repurpose it, but there's layers and levels to this. So maybe you don't feel comfortable throwing your phone in your face yet. That is the opportunity for growth. That is the opportunity for growth. So I hope that you are growing, and I hope that you're getting outside of your comfort zone. As always, until next week, keep on crushing it. please, please, please keep on podcasting, and I will talk to you all then.